So last we were talking about segmentation variables, and so these are the kind of variables that you look at, whether it's geographic, demographic, psychographic, which has to do about personality, or industrial. So these are some segmentation variables that you can look at and use. The thing is, when a lot of this focus is going to be on B2C, because if you understand B2C, you understand B2B. I mean, the personality of businesses are a lot easier to understand than people. And so when you look at customer variables, you're looking at descriptors, bases, and behaviors. What descriptors are, it tells you who the customer is, meaning their age, their income. So a lot of demographics go into this. Education. Bases are about why they would want to use your product. And so things like preferences, needs, lifestyles. And that ties into who the customer is. When we talk about, are they hedonistic, are they utilitarian? And behaviors are, what are they going to use this product for? How are they going to use it? Is this a product that will create loyalty? Are these people going to be responsive in the way you promote this? And so you also see, in terms of descriptors, bases, and behaviors, how it relates to organizations. Psychographics are essentially issues like personality and their tendencies and what applies to it. And if you could figure out the psychographics of your customer, this is how you get personalization. An example is when I was doing marketing, I normally went with the salesperson. And the reason why they brought me along is because when you're selling technology-based products, we're selling very high-end tech, capital equipment. You're going to get in front of a bunch of engineers. Engineers do not like marketers. They do not like upper management. They think they're phony. But the one thing Dr. Cho always had was incredible amounts of credibility when it came to technical work. And so that's the way we connected. They felt like bringing me along was personalization from them because I was someone they could talk to. The thing about psychographics, the big 5 traits that drive psychographics include openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And that pretty much describes a person's personality. Are they going to be intellectually curious? Do they enjoy the company of others? That's the thing. If you have a bunch of introverts, then instead of like throwing a party or something like that, you're probably going to go online and try to find them. Here's an example of a demographic and behavior using values, attitudes, and lifetimes. They actually have these kind of databases about certain kinds of people. And so you could read through this of how people value certain things. So these are the steps of the process. And again, you start off, derive a strategic rationale for pursuing the market, which basically means what is your objective. But also it's like, why are you going after this market? Why do you think this is a good opportunity? And so then you pick your variables. You go out and gather your data. And that could be either surveys, it could be web search researches, it could be interviews. And then you implement the proper tools. You figure out what customers work, and then you pick the segments that you think are going to be advantageous. The thing about segmentation, it varies, meaning there's no set, clean, cookie-cutter way of doing it. And actually, as you go through it and you work in your segment, you suddenly realize, something, age turns out to be a factor in this. So you add age as a variable and so on and so forth. The thing is, in terms of data gathering, here are the different techniques. I think it's pretty much straightforward. The big lesson here, though, is that you can manipulate data, meaning you can take sections out, you can play games with your data sets. So in terms of generating variables, there are 5 basic techniques. We've already talked about perceptual maps. There's mapping trees, where essentially you start looking at variables and keep figuring out details. There's bullseye, and that's where you look at your core of what you think your market is and then expand out, or you can come in. Tabulation is where you just make tables, and conjoint is actually where you look at your data and look for patterns. So here's an example of segmentation trees. This is actually a program our team, let's see, myself, Professor Kennedy, and Professor Harada are working on. And that's that we're looking at a co-op. And what a co-op is that students compete. You compete to get picked by a company, and once you're picked by a company, you go work for them every summer. After you're done, after 4 years, you're done with your undergraduate degree. You spend 1 semester with them, and your work experience basically becomes your master's thesis. So it's a 4+1. Not only will you get a master's degree, not only will you get fantastic work experience, it's going to make you very attractive in being hired. The best thing of all is you get paid. Anyway, so it's like, okay, let's create a co-op program. Who are we going to market this to? And so we started out focusing on community college students who are coming to ASU, high schools, and undecided. And actually the list was much longer than that. This is just an example. And so you brainstorm different variables, but then you just pick a couple, so you pare it down. And subsequently, like within high schools, where are we going to go after in high schools? Advisors, STEM classes, business classes, and so on and so forth. Bullseye, supposing I'm talking about hotels. You can start inside and work out. Actually, you can start from the outside and work in too. So luxury hotels versus brand hotels versus discount hotels. Crosstab is basically looking at statistics, and that's how you go out and get data, and based on that, you can figure out which segments had the potential to be attractive to you. Tabulation profiles are just like competition, where you think of all the different potential variables and what they're being valued against. And so you come up with it. You can decide which of those are most attractive. Conjoint analysis is essentially a statistical technique to figure out what attributes are most important. And actually, conjoint is a generic technique. It can also be applied to product features and pricing, which we'll get into. One way of doing conjoint is you go out and you collect data, and based on your database, you start looking at different variables of your product. And what ends up happening is certain data points start to come out and come together. And those are referred to as clusters. And based on your clusters, each of those clusters is a potential market segment that you can go after. Yeah, this is in your book. You can read about it, what the definition of a cluster is. And clusters can also have hierarchy. Like if I talk about gamers, I could talk about dweebs, geeks, and nerds, which are male and female. And essentially, more socially challenged than others, and then I could go after core gamers. So what I've done is I segmented core gamers according to their personalities and what kind of games I can go after with them. So in the next lecture, we'll talk about, actually not next lecture, next video, we'll talk about what makes a good segment and what makes a bad segment.